Welcome to Charles Dickens' A Brain on Fire, a series that digs deep into the life and works of one of the greatest novelists of all time. Hi everyone, I hope you enjoyed the previous episode on the Pickwick Papers. Here are two fragments that I couldn't fit into the main discussion, but I still want to share with you. So, here is Professor Hugo Bowles one more time. So, Hugo, what do you think is the legacy then and afterlife of Pickwick?
Pickwick had an absolutely massive afterlife, particularly in the 19th century. By the end of the 1870s, it had sold about 1.5 million copies, which was a huge amount. And it was the most widely read work by Dickens. And it had already had 5 theatrical adaptations in 1838. So people were copying it immediately. People were producing it in the theatre. Dickens reintroduced Pickwick and Sam and Tony in Master Humphrey's Clock as well later on, which wasn't so successful. And he did public readings of the Trial of Pickwick. But then there was also loads of sort of Pickwick merchandise. There was a Pickwick songbook. There was a Sam Weller joke book. You could buy Sam Weller corduroy trousers. I'd buy a pair of those. I'm sure they were, they kind of go very well, doesn't it? A Sam Weller corduroys. You'd buy them, wouldn't you? Pickwick pastries. There were Fat Boy pies. Everyone was using Pickwick to market their produce. And then, of course, because Pickwick was a traveller, Pickwick itself travels, and people opened Pickwick pubs and restaurants. Street names were named after Pickwick. Even now in London, you've got all kinds of names, Pickwick Place, Pickwick Street. In the borough, you've got Weller Street, Sawyer Street. So it spreads geographically. And then, of course, it goes sort of international. And what you get is there was a weekly journal called Pickwick in Boulogne, or Pickwick in America, edited by Boss, B-O-S. People were starting to plagiarize Dickens, which he got very angry about. But Pickwick in India, it's like the Carry On films. It becomes a kind of franchise. Carry On here, Carry On there, Carry On Pickwick, and it becomes completely unconnected with the book. It sort of takes on a life of its own. I mean, just to give you an amazing example, when my kids were growing up in Italy, this is very recent, there was a brand of children's clothing called Pickwick. And it was a really successful brand. But the image, the logo of the Pickwick Italian clothing brand was a sort of stick figure with a little boy with frazzled hair. Nothing to do with the fat, stout gentleman that Pickwick begins with, the complete opposite almost. But that's what happened with Pickwick. It's a memorable name, this Pickwick. So it's as if Pickwick has become this memorable something, but the actual book itself is perhaps becoming a bit forgotten. And I think we need to revive that. Everyone knows what Pickwick is. They've got this image of Pickwick, but maybe the adventures have been forgotten a little bit. What do you think?
I think that's right. I think the images don't do it justice, really. You get one impression really off the images, but the story itself is just rip-roaring, totally unpredictable and incredibly fun. You mentioning the corduroy trousers a moment ago reminded me of just one episode, and this is what Pickwick is like. You have these little things that are mentioned, and then it lights on your mind. When Benjamin Allen is trying to get his sister Arabella to marry Bob Sawyer.
Yes.
He recounts their childhood and he's sort of saying to Bob, yes, because my sister has slighted you her whole life. There was that time when you had maybe a caraway seed biscuit inside your trousers that you gave her, and she refused to eat it because she felt that the corduroy trousers you were wearing had made the biscuit too warm.
Incredible detail. That.
Isn't it great? Isn't it great? And I think readers need to read it because you're just missing out. And here is also the brilliant Gina Beck once more, this time reading an excerpt where Pickwick is swaying in the dark outside, holding a lantern, dropping in and out of sight, observed at a distance from the window of an eminent scientist.
The scientific gentleman was gazing abstractly on the thick darkness outside when he was very much surprised by observing a most brilliant light glide through the air at a short distance above the ground and almost instantaneously vanish. After a short time, the phenomenon was repeated, not once or twice, but several times. At last, the scientific gentleman, laying down his pen, began to consider to what natural causes these appearances were to be assigned. They were not meteors, they were too low. They were not glowworms, they were too high. What could they be? The scientific gentleman was a bachelor. He had no wife to call in and astonish, so he rang the bell for his servant. "Pruffle," said the scientific gentleman, "there is something very extraordinary in the air tonight. Did you see that?" said the scientific gentleman, pointing out of the window as the light again became visible. "Yes, I did, sir." "What did you think of it, Pruffle?" "Think of it, sir?" "Yes, you've been bred up in this country. What should you say was the cause for those lights now?" "I should say it was thieves, sir," said Pruffle at length. "You're a fool, and may go downstairs," said the scientific gentleman. "Thank you, sir."
Thank you for listening to Charles Dickens' A Brain on Fire. If you're enjoying these episodes and would like to make a small donation towards the costs of producing them, please follow the link at the bottom of the description and you can make a donation there. Every coffee you buy makes a huge difference. Thank you ever so much, and see you next time.